All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this community meeting for Envision Contra Costa 2040 for Mountain View and Vine Hill. My name is Will Nelson. I'm principal planner with Contra Costa County and the project manager for Envision 2040. We'll explain what that is a little bit more in a couple minutes here, but I wanted to introduce our team. We've got a handful of us from the county and then also from our general plan consultant Placeworks. So there's Joanne Marie and Daniel, who are with the county planning department along with me. And then Tanya Sundberg and Lindsay Klein, they are with our consultant Placeworks. We're going to do an icebreaker here, a poll, and I am going to point out there are only 3 participants. There are more people from the county than from the public at the moment. So in a minute, we're going to ask you all how you'd like to proceed with this, because we do have a big presentation and all this, but we might also want to have it just be more of a casual conversation. So I'm going to hand it off to Lindsay, I think, to put up the poll.
So do you want me to take over here, Will, or do you want
Yeah, please, Tanya.
Okay, great. Yeah, so again, I'm Tanya Sundberg with Placeworks. And we do have a couple just really quick, easy questions to try to get a sense of who's here. So we're up to 4 participants now, and we'll give a couple minutes here for the latest person to fill out the poll. But we're just trying to get a sense of who's here. The first question is asking about kind of who you are. Are you a resident, or are you a business owner or representative from a community organization or local government? And then the second question is asking about what community you live or work in. Again, this meeting is focused on Vine Hill and Mountain View, but of course, anybody who's interested and wants to share some opinions are welcome to join us. So those questions are asking if you're from Vine Hill or Mountain View or other parts of the county or even outside the county. So Heidi, welcome. We have a small group with us today. I think you just joined, and we have a poll going. So if you have a minute, or if you can take a minute to fill it out, that'd be great.
Thanks, I just did.
Great, thanks, Heidi.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it looks like we've got 3 out of 3 answered. So I think Lindsay, you can go ahead and end the poll. So we have 1 person who's a resident, 1 person who's a business owner, and 1 person who's a community organization representative. So that's a nice even distribution. And 2 people from Vine Hill and 1 person from Mountain View. So really nice to see you all. Thank you for joining us and sharing some input on the future of Vine Hill and Mountain View. So it's good that we have some representation from across the community, even though it's a small number of folks. As Will mentioned at the intro, we do have a small group here. We have about 15 to 20-minute presentation to provide kind of an overview of what the Envision Contra Costa 2040 project is. And then we have time set aside in the agenda for questions and answers, but the bulk of the meeting will be kind of where we focus on talking to you about the kind of big issues in Vine Hill and Mountain View. What are the things that we can build on? What are the great things there that we can build on to help us formulate policy guidance for this community? So I'm curious if anybody has, any of the participants here, if you guys have any opinions about whether you'd like to do the full presentation or just want kind of a more informal back and forth given the small group. Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
I'm fine either way. Up to you.
Thanks, Heidi.
I do have a 7 o'clock, so maybe I should vote for the shorter version.
Okay, David or Michelle or.
I'd be interested in a little bit, at least, of the presentation. I just found out about this meeting earlier today from Nextdoor. So okay. I'm just here because I saw it on Nextdoor and
awesome.
What's going on.
Great. Awesome. Okay. And I see a thumbs up from David. Okay. Well, that's enough for me. I will dive into the presentation. But I will try to not spend too much time on the details so that Heidi can have time to talk about stuff before she has to leave. So I'm going to share my screen. That's big. Can you all see the presentation?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So I already kind of gave an overview of our agenda, so I won't do that again. So let's dive into an overview of the project. So Envision Contra Costa is kind of the umbrella term for this project that covers these 4 documents that you can see on this slide. The first, and I'm going to cover each one of these in a little bit more detail in some upcoming slides, but just big picture, the general plan is the first document. So the project is updating the county's general plan. That's a document that provides the overarching policy guidance for the county on a pretty wide range of topics. The second plan is called the zoning code, and we're updating that as well through this project. The zoning code implements the policy guidance in the general plan with a lot more specificity on the topic of land use and how development can happen. And then the last plan that we're updating is called the Climate Action Plan. And that also implements the general plan's policy guidance. And this time is more focused on greenhouse gas emissions and how the county can reduce emissions from activities that happen within the county. And then the last document is called the Environmental Impact Report. That is a report that's required by the state to disclose the potential effects that could happen from implementing these 3 plans on the environment. So in a nutshell, that's the Envision Contra Costa 2040 project. So let's dive into each one of these a little bit more, starting with the general plan. So the general plan is often called the Constitution for Development and Conservation. And it's called the Constitution because it provides this real overarching framework for all of the more detailed regulations, guidelines, and other plans that a city or a county will adopt that affect how development and conservation can happen. So again, just as you can tell from its name, it's very general, it's very big picture, but it's also really important in setting up this kind of foundational framework for all the other stuff that will implement it. So in a general plan, from a big picture, what it needs to do is first establish a countywide vision for what the community wants for the future of Contra Costa County. And in this update, we're looking out to the year 2040. So this is a plan that will look out to the year 2040 and say what do the people in Contra Costa want the county to look like and be like in the year 2040. And then once you have that vision, the plan needs to establish goals, policies, and implementation measures that guide day-to-day decisions by county staff and decision makers that will all help the county to work towards achieving that vision that was identified by the community. And then in setting up this policy guidance, the general plan also will provide consistent direction for future development so that both developers and community members have some certainty about the future of their community. And then also the policy guidance needs to balance the community's sometimes competing values related to growth, conservation, and quality of life. And finally, an important function of the general plan is to document baseline environmental conditions. So that's looking at what's on the ground today, mainly so we can kind of know what we need to do to get from where we are today to the future vision for the community or the county. So what's in a general plan is dictated in part by state law. State law requires that a city or a county general plan address the required topics shown on this slide. That's land use, transportation, safety, noise, open space, conservation, environmental justice, and housing. The state law also allows cities and counties to go beyond that list of required topics and address other things. And so the county's current general plan has sections on growth management and public facilities and services. So this gives you a sense of the kinds of topics that are addressed in the policy guidance in the general plan. Also, when the county's Board of Supervisors directed that the county begin this general plan update, they directed that these 4 themes be addressed in this general plan. Those themes are economic development, sustainability, community health, and environmental justice. Those 4 topics don't really receive much attention, if any, in the existing general plan, since that plan is quite outdated. So these are going to be really big, these are focus areas of this general plan update. And these themes are going to be woven throughout all of the plan and all the different topics. These will have a role. And I do want to highlight one topic called environmental justice, because it's a relatively new topic. The state passed a law in 2016 that requires the general plans to address environmental justice. So this will be the first time that environmental justice is addressed in the county's general plan. And just to kind of get a shared baseline understanding of what we mean by environmental justice, you can see the state's definition of it here on this slide. But I think there's probably a lot of different ways to think about it. I think fundamentally, it's just the basic right of all people of all races, cultures, and incomes to live, work, go to school, play, and worship in a healthy and clean environment. And one of the topics that receives a lot of attention in a general plan update is the topic of land use. And a big focus for that is what's called the land use map. This map designates every parcel in the unincorporated county for a type of land use. And it also specifies how intensely that land use can be developed. So in residential areas, it will say, how many housing units you can have per acre. In non-residential areas, it will have some limits on how many square feet you can have of the use compared to the lot size. So that's all in the land use map. And of course, that has a lot of implications for how land is developed and of course affects quality of life and community character and things like that. So it's a big focus for a general plan. It also provides the framework for the zoning map, which relates to the next product or document that we're talking about as part of this Envision Contra Costa project. So the zoning code includes a zoning map and zoning districts. The zoning map is really similar to the general plan land use map that I just showed on the last slide. And so it designates every parcel in the unincorporated county for a zoning district, which reflects the land use type. And that specifies also the types and intensities of land uses that can be developed on it. So the county's new zoning map will align with the new general plan land use map, but it's going to add more specificity than what you find in the general plan land use map. So for example, in the general plan map, it may show that an area is planned for commercial development, whereas in the zoning code, it's going to specify what kind of commercial development that means. Is it local commercial or is it highway commercial? Those kinds of things. And then outside of just the map and those districts, the zoning code also has a very long set of regulations that affect how development can happen with a lot more specificity. So it will dictate, exactly what uses are allowed in that zoning district, what kinds of permits are needed to develop that use, and what are the specific standards that development needs to adhere to. So, for example, how far back from the property line must the building be located, how many parking spaces, things like that. So on this slide, you can see the county's current general plan land use map for the Mountain View and Vine Hill areas. The kind of orange and brown colors are all residential, which is a pretty dominant land use in these communities. You can see the red commercial along Pacheco Boulevard, and then the purple and magenta light and heavy industrial uses north of the communities. So that's what's in the current general plan. As part of tonight's meeting, we are going to be sharing with you the new draft land use map for the Vine Hill and Mountain View area, and ask for your feedback on whether we made the right changes, whether it looks right. So that is going to be part of our discussion today. On this slide, you can see the current zoning map for Vine Hill and Mountain View area. So again, this is implementing that general plan land use map, but adding some more details on those individual uses. And we don't have a draft of the zoning map together yet. That will come later in the process. We're still focused on getting those general plan land use designations right first. So the third plan that's being updated again is called the Climate Action Plan, or CAP. So this is focused on greenhouse gas emissions. It will establish targets for future years of saying by how much the county should reduce greenhouse gas emissions for activities that occur within the county. And then it establishes a plan to reach those targets. So this climate action plan affects all these different aspects of the community. It will look at building efficiency, energy sources and renewable energy, transportation and land use, waste and water. And it will have specific strategies for how the county will reduce greenhouse gas emissions in all of those different sectors, with the goal of reaching the greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets that it establishes. So this climate action plan update is also pretty far underway, but there's still more work to do. And you can see the contact information for Jody London, the county sustainability coordinator, on this slide. And she's the person who's really spearheading this part of the project at the county. So you feel free to reach out to her with more questions, or you can also ask us questions about it today. So we're involved in that as well. And then the last document again is called the Environmental Impact Report, or EIR. This is a report required by the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. And it requires local agencies to disclose the potential impacts on the environment from a project. And in this case, the project is implementation of the general plan, the zoning code, and the climate action plan. So the environmental impact report will disclose the potential effects on the physical environment from implementing those three plans. It will also identify any mitigation measures that could mitigate those impacts, reduce those impacts, and also look at feasible alternatives to the content in those plans, again, to reduce impacts. So that process is not yet started, but that will be a future phase of this project. And there are some important public review components for the environmental impact report, including early in the EIR phase, we'll have a 30-day scoping period where we'll ask people to provide input on what the EIR should evaluate. And then after we've done the evaluation and publish a draft EIR, we'll be asking for feedback on the analysis. So that will all be part of that process. And then for the larger project overall, there have been and continue to be a lot of opportunities for public involvement in the process. And our website, envisioncontracosta2040.org, is the main way to find out how you can continue to be involved in this project. On that website, you'll find online questions when we have them. You'll find information about upcoming meetings. And then we've been having meetings throughout the process. We had a real big focus on these community-based meetings, similar to what we're doing tonight. Earlier, pre-pandemic, we had a lot of those meetings, and we continue to have them as needed, like we're doing tonight. We've had meetings focused on specific topics like environmental justice and sustainability. And then we've also been having meetings with some of the county's commissions and advisory bodies, like the Sustainability Commission, the Sustainability Committee, Planning Commission, and Board of Supervisors. And we are kind of right now wrapping up a more intense meetings phase with some of these bodies, and in particular the Planning Commission. We just met for the last time with them last week for this phase, where we've been reviewing the draft goals, policies, and actions for the general plan. So those are looking at county-wide policy guidance and getting some feedback, which is different than our kind of focus tonight of looking at individual community policy guidance. Which brings me to this slide here, kind of circling back to what we're focused on today for this meeting, which is looking at the specific policies that we need to support the Vine Hill and Mountain View communities. So in the general plan, there will be all these countywide policies that address all those topics we talked about. And that's what we've been reviewing with the Planning Commission and other bodies. But then there will also be a part of the general plan that's presenting community guidance, and that will be in the form of these community profiles. So that will provide, and for Vine Hill and Mountain View, the profile will say, you know, these are the ways that the county can make decisions that support what this particular community wants for its future. So this is a really important outlet for people who are concerned about their particular community and the future of their community. So in the meeting materials for tonight, if you checked those out, there's a PDF that includes a piece of the community profile for Vine Hill and Mountain View. And that piece is what we call the context piece. So it's all kind of the background information. It covers the character, the history, the demographics, and hazards and vulnerabilities in Vine Hill and Mountain View. And so we were able to prepare that piece of the profile based on research and data that was available, as well as some community input that we did hear from community members in earlier outreach we did pre-pandemic. But you know, the participation at that earlier meeting was pretty limited, and so we didn't have a lot to go on. So what you see in this draft profile does reflect what we heard from the community, but we are very interested tonight in hearing from you whether we got it right, and really are looking for that feedback. We also are hoping to get your input tonight to help us move forward with the remaining part of this profile, which we call the guidance part. So this is the part that will list guiding principles, policies, and actions that will guide county decisions that affect Vine Hill and Mountain View. And we want those decisions to be guided towards the community's vision for the future. So a big focus of our conversation today is going to be on hearing from you about what those big issues are that we need to address in this policy guidance, so that we can put together the other part of this profile. So we had planned to break up into small groups for our main discussion. And so given that we have already a small group, I think we'll stay in a large group. But just to give you a sense of what's to come before we have our Q&A, after we do our Q&A and we move into the questions, these are the questions that we're going to be asking you tonight. We're going to be asking you, what do you like most about Vine Hill and Mountain View? What you'd like to see supported, preserved, or enhanced as part of this general plan? What are the challenges facing these communities? What do you want to see change to make it a better place to live and work? And then we'll move into a review of the draft general plan land use map, seek your feedback on whether we got those land use designations right, whether that seems like the right direction to go for the community. And then finally, a kind of more open discussion about the draft profile and any suggestions you have and feedback you have on how to make that better. So that'll be the focus of that discussion. But before we do that, I think at this point, I will stop sharing my screen, and we have some time set aside for questions and answers. So I think, at this point, we'd like to kind of focus on any clarifying questions that we can answer, just to make sure we're all have a shared understanding of what we're doing and what the project is about. And then we can move into the discussion where you can provide your comments and feedback on things, and let us know your thoughts about where we need to go for Vine Hill and Mountain View. So with that, I think you are welcome to unmute yourself and just ask a question, or if you prefer, you can raise your hand and we can call on you.
I have a question.
Great, thank you.
Has the city of Martinez been involved at all?
So the city was contacted, in fact, to as part of our preparation for this meeting, to talk about outreach and ways that we could try and reach people in the community. They have not been consulted yet as far as any policy language for this area because it is yet to be written.
Any other clarifying questions?
You mentioned meeting notes for today's meeting. Where would those be found?
Well, we are going to be creating those during our meeting. When we move into our discussion portion, what we typically do is we share our screen so you can see us taking notes and make sure we get those right. And then after the meeting, those will be published as part of the summary.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you had said if we had had a chance to look at them before. So I might be.
Yeah, we did on the website publish so a PDF that shows the draft profile, that context portion that I mentioned, as well as the draft and existing general plan land use maps and the existing zoning map. So Lindsay just put a link in the chat if you want to go check that out. We are also going to share our screen and show you those as we talk through the discussion today. So it's totally fine if you haven't looked at those in advance.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, clarifying questions? Okay. Well, then I think we should move into our discussion, and that means I should share my screen with the questions so we can all look at them together as we get started. Anything I'm missing before we shift into that phase, county staff or any of you participating today? You have a question about?
Nothing striking me.
Okay. Great. So on to sharing. So we're going to start. We're going to start with the kind of on a positive side, you know, looking at the things you love about Vine Hill and Mountain View. So what are the assets? What do you like most about your community? What would you like to see supported, preserved, or enhanced as part of the planning effort? I think we can kind of start big picture, and then if you'd like, we can also share some of what is in the profile that relates to this. But before we do that, I think maybe we can start big picture, and I'll be taking notes, and don't hesitate to speak up if I get something wrong. Although I think, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun, and we should have, let me stop sharing real quick. We wanted to do a little, we usually do a little intro for the folks that are here, so you can know a little bit more about the people who are participating. So if it's all right, would you guys just maybe say a few words about what brought you to the meeting and what part, you know, whether you're a Vine Hill or Mountain View representative? And maybe we could start with Michelle.
Sure. I am a resident of Mountain View. And as I mentioned earlier, I just saw on Nextdoor a reminder there's a meeting tonight. I'm like, I wonder what that meeting's about. So that's why.
Thank you. How about Heidi?
Hi, guys. I'm Heidi Petty. I work for Contra Costa Resource Conservation District. I work in Pachenko, Martinez. I work in this whole area as a coordinator. So I just felt like I should attend and kind of have some input and hear what's going on. Specifically, I'm often working over in the ponds over there and wetlands with Mountain View Sanitary District.
Great. All right, David. Are you able to unmute, David? Okay, well, if you are having audio issues, feel free to use the chat to communicate.
I can say David just messaged me and he said that his mic is not working and he is just interested in the overall process of the general plan.
Okay, thank you, David. And as I was starting to say, I think you can use the chat if that's easy for you. Feel free to use the chat or communicate with Lindsay if there's something else we can do to make it easier for you to participate. And Donna?
Yes, I am a current resident of the city of Martinez. I have been a resident of Mountain View, and I'm also on the County Planning Commission.
Thank you. Okay.
And happened to work for this department for 30 years.
And actively worked on the annexation of the Shell refinery in the 80s.
Wow, there's some institutional knowledge there. Okay, thanks everyone for sharing that intro. I think that's helpful. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen again and we'll dive into this question. So again, the question is, what do you like most about Vine Hill and Mountain View? What would you like to see supported, preserved, or enhanced as part of this planning effort? And I'll go ahead and open it up to anybody who wants to speak.
I can speak. For me, it's very important, the restorations that have been done there at Mountain View Sanitary District, East Bay Parks area of the zone. And I've been working on these tide gate management plans, trying to bring the water into all those wetlands and not have it, get too algae ridden. So I think it's super important for me to see the focus on those restoration projects brought to the forefront and potentially supported by the county a little further. Birds, 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 fish, 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 I guess. All that good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi.
David messaged me and he said that he appreciates open space areas.
Awesome. Okay, so we're hearing a lot about kind of open space and natural resources. Anything about the kind of more built environment, places in Vine Hill, Mountain View that you love and you want to see built upon, or other things about the community? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and switch my screen share over to the profile. Sorry, bear with me. Because I think some of, and actually I should make this a little bigger. Sorry, hold on. So this is just like we're going to talk more generally about the profile. I don't, but I want to just like to start drawing your attention to it and look in particular at this introductory text here that just kind of sets up some of the character, description of the character. And this paragraph here reflects the limited input that we heard at the first community meeting for this area. And see if there's kind of more or different things you want to highlight. Right now, what it reads, residents appreciate easy access to nature in the hills west of Martinez and the Contra Costa Canal to the trail to the south. Residents are also proud of their independent, self-sufficient nature and recognize that the communities are distinct from Martinez and Concord. Community members have noted that the friendly, neighborly feeling cultivated in these communities would be enhanced with improved public safety. Oh wait, so this is, sorry, that's where we get, that's where we're gonna stop because that's where we get into issues. So it's really like, this is kind of the assets that we saw highlighted from the first one. Do those feel right? Do you wanna, is there more you would add or change here?
Go ahead, Donna.
I don't know about communities that are distinct from Martinez and Concord. Definitely Concord, but they all have Martinez addresses. They all participate in Martinez activities. They all come downtown. So I really don't think that they're um, not inclined to think of themselves as Martinez. And they are within the sphere of influence and will ultimately, most likely, become Martinez.
David messaged me and said he totally agrees with that. And he also thinks that the first paragraph we just walked through sounds really good.
Right.
I would say that I agree with that to a point, but I also do feel like the small town feel of Mountain View, while that can be a community that's within the city, it is something that also feels distinct from the city. And there are, you know, different services that we have than the city residents have. So I don't know that I disagree with the way that it's stated that they are distinct from Martinez and Concord.
Mhm.
Yes, we do have Martinez addresses, but we are also a community within Martinez that does have different services as well.
Mhm.
I would definitely say they don't feel that they're related to Concord.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, well, it seems like there's probably some tweaking we can do to be clear that there are a lot of that Vine Hill and Mountain View are really tied in with Martinez, but there are some kind of distinct characteristics. So I think there's some refinement we can do. Any other thoughts on that issue from the group? Okay. And we have, some representation of kind of open space access here, but we can maybe broaden that a little bit based on what Heidi was mentioning too. Okay. I'm gonna go back over to the other notes. I'll give you one more opportunity to chime in on this first question, and then we'll move on to the next one. Any last thoughts on this one?
David did just message me and said he thought the sentence about nature and access to hills in the PDF looked good to him.
Okay. Okay, great. I'll move us on then to the second question. So this is where we get at the issues, the things that we want to see maybe changed in Vine Hill and Mountain View. So the question is, what are the challenges facing your community? What would you like to see changed to make it a better place to live and work? So again, similar to last time, let's just start big picture and then we can take a look at what's in the profile related to this as well.
David messaged me a little bit earlier and he said that roads need to be properly paved. And then he also said that it would be great to have better trash service in the area.
Okay. And if I can ask David, I'm curious if it's a matter of like the logistics of like the frequency, or is it more, because we've heard from a lot of communities about illegal dumping. And I'm curious if that's the issue or if it's something more kind of logistical about the service itself.
Well, the trash service in the Mountain View Vine Hill area is not the same as it is in the city of Martinez.
Okay.
I can speak to that also, that we only get recycling and yard waste every other week, not every week.
Okay.
And we really need to have the recycling and yard waste increased.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
also in terms of roads, I know I already saw this on that other document you were talking about, but sidewalks.
Yes.
And David agreed. He said it's logistical and he'd like it every week.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to add the illegal dumping element as well, because that is often going on in the back areas of the county.
Okay. Thank you.
A second access from the Vine Hill area would be most desirable.
as in the sense of emergency access, or just more for convenience of getting around?
Convenient, a second access
Mhm.
for everybody.
And David wanted to second the comment about illegal dumping as well.
Right. Okay, any other initial thoughts on issues? Okay, I'm gonna switch us over to the profile. And we can take a look at some of the draft content there related to issues. Okay, well, I started covering this in our last question. So what we heard from community members and the last time is that they've noted that the friendly neighborly feeling cultivated in these communities would be enhanced with improved public safety and beautification, and that enhanced sidewalks, better trail connections, and expanded public transit would support healthier lifestyles. Residents also cite parking as a prevalent issue in their neighborhoods and would like to see increased parking available, or would like to increase parking availability near their homes. So I guess maybe, is there anything there that you disagree with? Maybe we could start there.
It's not a disagreement. I'm just not sure when it says enhanced sidewalks. There are no sidewalks in
Okay.
most of Mountain View.
So we just need sidewalks. Thank you. Anything else that you would disagree with here? Or change?
I think that because there are no sidewalks, there are no drainage for the roads.
Uh-huh,
So that creates yet another problem.
okay.
There's no gutters.
David just weighed in and said that looks good.
Okay, is there anything we're missing from this description about issues to address, other than what you've already shared with us related to, trash service, illegal dumping, access and roads? I'm curious if there's any particular place where you think the county should focus efforts in any of these areas? Like, for example, is there like core parts where, the sidewalks would be most desired that you want to call out, or anything else that you've suggested where there's maybe like a specific intersection or a specific location in the community where a particular project is something you'd like to see happen?
This isn't a comment in relation to that, but David asked if Pacheco Boulevard is in the boundary of the Vine Hill map.
It is. So Pacheco Boulevard, if you can see my cursor, it's this purple line running right through here. So I think this map that you see here on the screen is kind of generally the area we're looking at. I think because these are distinct communities that are a little separated, we're covering a larger area, but this is like our planning area, I guess, for these communities, and Pacheco Boulevard definitely runs through it. We do have a separate profile though for the community of Pacheco further south of here, which also Pacheco Boulevard goes through. Any other thoughts on issues based on this page?
Yeah, David just had a follow-up comment about Pacheco Boulevard. He said it's a raceway. Some sort of traffic calming would be great to implement along there.
Great, okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you, David.
He also added, sorry, that this is especially true for bicyclists in that area
Okay.
on Pacheco Boulevard.
Okay. Any other thoughts about that issue or other issues we've talked about on this page? I will point out, just on the topic of issues, this profile does present information about hazards and vulnerabilities, and this is based on research that our team has done, looking at a lot of different data sets. So we do have some maps that look at sea level rise, which shows some inundation areas kind of at the outskirts of the communities, similar to the flood zones map that show some parts of Vine Hill affected. And then we've got kind of a description of vulnerabilities over here. I don't think we need to spend time on this unless folks want to chat about it or have comments on what's presented here. And I think I'll stop there. We'll cover the rest of the profile in the last question. So moving on in our questions. I'm going to go back to our set of questions. So our next topic is really focused on the general plan land use map for the Vine Hill and Pacheco areas. So this is actually, I should have pulled up the, I guess it is. Okay, so you guys are seeing this already. It's in the same PDF, so this works. Oh, no, wait, no, I'm sorry, I switched it. I'm sorry. I have too many screens to share. Okay, so we're back to the PDF. And I'm gonna scroll us down to the page that shows the draft general plan land use map for Vine Hill and Mountain View. So as you can see, in Mountain View, it's still primarily residential. And most of it is in the medium density residential designation with the kind of eastern edge here at medium high density residential. Then we've got commercial along Pacheco Boulevard with some pocket of public right here in blue. And then, of course, north of this community is the heavy industrial. And then over in Vine Hill, a lot of the community is residential, similar medium density residential designation. And this gray that you see along Pacheco is designated for mixed use. So that would be a mixture of commercial, office, and retail, and residential uses. There's some public, this blue is public, this purple is a light industrial use. And then there's some, resource conservation, that's kind of open space uses, and then ag down here south of the community. So this is what's in the draft general plan land use map. This is still something that is not set in stone, and part of the process is seeking community feedback on the draft map. So I'd like to open it up for any comments on whether this seems like the right set of planned land uses for these communities in the future.
I had a question about the previous slide where you talked about flood zones and stuff, but there was no discussion about air quality.
Yeah, well, I think, let me go back up to that section. I'm just looking at, so it's talked about in the in the text off here to the side, this is kind of focusing on vulnerabilities, people and systems that might be vulnerable to hazards, including climate change hazards. So we do kind of mention the air quality issue here, but it's certainly not a big focus of this, in part because there's not as many kind of compelling, it's harder to map air quality sometimes. So that's part of what the data that we're showing these maps is based on, or the decisions about what to show in the maps are based on available data. But I think I hear the comment, and we can note that air quality is a concern and weave that in to be focused comment.
Okay. I think air quality and human health hazards are both, and seismic hazards, those are all very serious questions
Mhm.
that Mountain View and Vine Hill has to deal with.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts about these hazards before we go back to the land use map?
I just would say I agree.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so I'll go back then to the land use map. This is the one that's. Change the scale here for a minute. Okay, these are the drafts. So this is the new draft map for the communities. Anybody have any questions or comments about what's shown here?
Anya, I'll just add that a lot of what we did with this map was simply matching what's already on the ground in the community, except for the stretch there toward the right where it says Vine Hill, where you see it says mixed use now, MU, where currently there are all kinds of designations. There's different residential designations, different commercial designations. And so, mixed use, you'd expect to have, you could do either commercial or residential perhaps on a property, or maybe both. So you're sort of commercial on the bottom and then, residential uses on top, like apartments or condominiums or something like that. So that's really the biggest, the biggest change from what is existing on the map.
Thanks for that description, Will. Does anybody have any, do we have this right? Or do you need more time to think about it?
David made a comment, and I think this is more about the hazard slides, a couple up, but he just said, wouldn't air quality, or it's more of a question. He asked, wouldn't air quality regulations be governed by the air district and not the county?
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for making that, David. Will, do you want to maybe touch on the distinction between where the county can have some role versus the air district on air quality?
Sure. So David is right that in general, the air district is the regulatory agency with jurisdiction over air quality. But from time to time, the county does get a chance, gets a bite at that apple when uses like, say, the refinery want to do, and it's usually a major project, they have to come to the county to get a land use permit. And so when they have to get that approval from us, then the county does get into the regulatory role regarding air quality. Now, we work hand in hand with the air district on issues like that. And so ultimately they give us, a lot of great input. But, so the county kind of takes a secondary role when it comes to air quality, but sometimes our permit issuance. So, for example, former Shell refinery hasn't done this, but we just issued use permits for the Rodeo Phillips 66 refinery and the Marathon refinery over north of Concord. So the county was issuing the use permit. The county did the environmental impact report, but the Air District and many other agencies weighed in on the various topics. So air quality being one of them. So yes, generally it's the Air District, but sometimes it's the county.
I guess my concern, and I have yet to see how it's going to come together with environmental justice and putting housing next to a refinery.
Yeah, that's actually, if you are available on Monday at 1 o'clock, the county's sustainability committee is holding a meeting where we will be talking about exactly that issue, amongst other things. They will be reviewing the latest draft of the environmental justice goals, policies, and actions for the entire general plan. And in fact, a lot of work has gone into what to do about that topic, putting housing, parks, childcare, all these uses that a community needs near something like a refinery, because we don't want to, as the committee pointed out, and this is a committee of supervisors, Glover and Joya, we had a policy at one point that said, keep those things as far away from heavy polluters as possible. But even the committee said, if you do that, you're basically saying that these needed land uses can't happen in certain communities, and you still need to have parks in Rodeo or Crockett or Vine Hill. You still need to have childcare centers. You still need to have medical facilities. And so we've been trying to figure out a policy solution for that for a couple of years now. And we have some language that we're proposing to the supervisors on Monday that creates some overlay zones where there are higher regulations like for ventilation and air quality in buildings, but also putting stricter regulations on the polluters themselves. And that's what the supervisors had expressed they really wanted, was to try and find a way to make those creating the pollution solve the pollution problem.
Sounds good. This is when?
Monday, the 23rd at 1 o'clock.
And how do we join it?
So Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, but on the Envision Contra Costa 2040.org website, we list all of the meetings. They're right there on the front page, and then they're also on the calendar. And when you click on the meeting, it'll lead to, I think in this case, it leads to the agenda, which has the link. Is that correct,
Okay.
Lindsay? I see her nodding there.
Thank you.
And she
And I
just put it,
threw
yeah.
it in the chat.
Lindsay just posted it in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on or comments on this air quality concern or other hazards or the land use map? Before we move on. Okay, well, I think, our last question was just wanting to get some feedback on the overall community profile. So we've looked at a couple bits and pieces of it, but perhaps we can just kind of step back and walk through it, and we'll just go page by page and ask for input. Does that sound right to the group?
Tanya,
Yeah.
can I ask us to take a step back real quick? Maybe just, can we shift the map over so we see the portion of Vine Hill that's on the east side of
Oh, sorry, yeah.
680?
I thought that it was ending there.
There's a little more community there.
Yeah, I was like, don't cut off, and I was.
Yeah,
didn't
and then
understand, but
if we
yeah.
move it a little north to get the neighborhood there.
Yeah.
But going back to what I mentioned earlier, this hasn't really changed. This is just matching for the most part what's there. We've got a residential community neighborhood that's a little more dense than some other areas. We changed the land use designation to match that. And this does not reflect, this map doesn't reflect yet the recent approval of the Bayview project. So a portion of that dark purple heavy industry there is actually going to have a residential designation now, right there, near the hill. next to where it says RC and moving the cursor down, kind of, yeah, right in there.
Down here, okay.
No, the other,
Oh,
up,
here, okay, yeah.
yeah, right in there.
I had one thing that I didn't respond quickly enough about the air quality piece. It's a very different layer of the air quality piece, I think, but somewhere public transportation was mentioned.
Mhm.
And if there was easier access to public transportation, that may help to improve the air quality as well.
Okay. Great, thanks, Michelle. Okay, so I'll,
David just asked me if the mixed use designation along Pacheco is new, Pacheco Boulevard.
Yes, that would be new. Maybe it'd be helpful, Tanya, to show the existing map real
Yeah.
quick.
yeah. And I'm trying to strike a balance of being zoomed in so you can see it, but I was showing enough of the
Yeah.
map. This is the current.
So
map.
here's the existing map. And so we see all these different designations like CO is commercial, MH, multiple family high density, OF is office. We're combining the office and commercial designations in the new general plan. So it's really that area there, generally that's the CO, MH, OF, and SH, single family high density, peaks in there a little bit too. So you have all these different designations, all these different land uses in this, kind of relatively small area. So instead of trying to parse them all out, we thought going to mixed use would be a good solution.
He said, thank you.
All right, I'll move us on and go back to the beginning of this profile. I'll give a summary of kind of what's on each page and see if you have comments. And again, this is available in that link that Lindsay posted earlier in the meeting if you want to kind of look at it on your own screen too. But again, this first page kind of describes the community, describes some of the things that people love about the community and things that they want to see changed or improved in the community. So that's this initial text. And then we've got this overview map. This is highlighting the parks, trails, bikeways, schools and fire stations in the community. So that's what we're trying to do there. And then at the bottom, we just have some demographic information showing age, average life expectancy, median household income, and race and ethnicity. And those are kind of compared to the county as a whole. So that's what we're trying to do on this page. We've already spent a little time on this, but are there other comments that we haven't discussed earlier that folks want to make on this about this first page? And I will just say,
I just have a question. Is this based on the recent census?
no, this was prepared earlier in the process, and I think we still need to go back and update that data. I think we prepared it in 2019 to early 2020. And so that was based on the latest data available at that time.
I also want to throw in real quick that these pictures, we have an ability on the website to accept photo submissions. So if anybody has photos that they would like to submit of the neighborhood, we would be happy to use some nice photos in the profile or other parts of the general plan.
You only want nice photos, right?
We welcome any photos.
We'll accept any. We'll
Yeah,
only
well,
publish the nice ones.
Well, yeah, I mean, generally we want to show in this setting, I think we were trying to highlight some of the good things, but it can be helpful to see photos that demonstrate some of the issues that need to be addressed. It may not be like put on the front page of the profile, but it's still helpful.
There are some lovely refinery sunset photos I've seen.
There are.
And I will say too, I don't want you to feel like this is your only opportunity to comment on this. You do have the link to view it. And if you want to take more time with it outside of this meeting, we'll share with you Will's email address, so you can just email comments to Will directly too.
And of course, sharing it with neighbors and friends. And we also we're not anywhere close to the end of this process, so it also doesn't have to be tomorrow, but we would like to have comments sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And after we're done with this presentation or this discussion, I'll kind of summarize what the next steps are, so you know what's ahead. So all of that's to say, don't feel too much pressure, but if you do have thoughts right now, this is the time to share. I'll move us on to the next page. So again, this is presenting hazards and vulnerabilities information based on our research, based on that was based on available data. So again, this highlights the sea level rise and flood zone maps. For vulnerabilities, it highlights which communities and systems are most vulnerable to climate change hazards. So that's what this text here is highlighting. Any other comments beyond our previous discussion on the hazard section? Okay, I am going to move us on. So this next section of this profile is something that is only provided in a subset of the community profiles. So this is tied in with the environmental justice topic that we talked about earlier. So that's part of the state law called SB 1000 that was passed in 2016, and it requires cities and counties to address environmental justice in their general plans. It also specifies that as part of that work to address environmental justice, cities and counties need to identify what the state law calls disadvantaged communities. So those are communities that are experiencing a combination of the historic discrimination, negligence, and political and economic disempowerment that can result in a disproportionate burden of pollution and health impacts. So that's kind of what's described here. And so there's a bunch of data available from the state that helps cities and counties to map these disadvantaged communities, and that has been done for Contra Costa County, and Vine Hill and Mountain View area falls within that data, showing that this is what the state would call a disadvantaged community. In the county's general plan, we use the term impacted community. So this language, this is kind of an outdated version. And then in the draft general plan that will get published later in the process, we will use the term impacted community. But this is part of the process, is just identifying where those communities are, and Vine Hill Mountain View is part of that. And so we have some information here on this page and on the upcoming pages that show some of the data from the state that puts this area into that category of being called quote unquote disadvantaged. So there's a description of some of those issues here. And then you can see on the right, these are all the different indicators that the state data looks at to do that mapping. So, and everything kind of in the top quarter percentile is what we are really focused on. So the big issues in Vine Hill and Mountain View are traffic density, concentration of cleanup sites. So these are like hazardous materials cleanup sites, susceptibility to groundwater threats, density of hazardous waste facilities, proximity to solid waste sites, asthma-induced emergency room visits, and that's the last one in that top quarter. So those are some of the big issues in Vine Hill Mountain View that have brought the community into that designation. Go ahead, Dana.
Excuse me, did I somehow lose this? I'm on something that says more than meetings, explore what is possible with Zoom. Are you somewhere else?
I think you might be on the website, like the web platform. So do you see anything related to this meeting? Do you see our faces or anything?
I see your faces over on the side.
Okay. If you go down to the bottom of your screen and you see all the little icons, do you see one for Zoom? It's like a blue square with a picture of a video camera in it.
No.
Lindsay, anybody? No?
Okay, I'll just go ahead with your meeting. I can hear you.
Okay.
I just have one clarifying question. You're
Sure.
saying Mountain View and Vine Hill, but this text is all about Vine Hill? Is it
Yeah,
communities or-
yeah. Sorry for not being clear. I think technically just Vine Hill is within the map, is within the state data showing the map. But the profile is going to, talk about both communities. So the map showing where impacted communities are will only show Vine Hill. So that is kind of the focus for this part of the profile. I don't know, Will, you want to, I saw you on mute, is that about right?
Oh, yeah. No, and I think possibly, again, when we originally made this, I think that version of the state's data might have even had both communities. And I know that the latest version, though, only shows Vine Hill as impacted, as Tanya said.
Yeah. Yeah, the state's data has been updated, and so in the final draft of this that will come out later this year, it'll show all the updates. Thanks for clarifying that, Michelle. Any other initial thoughts on just the kind of this designation as an impacted community in the data we show?
Well, I would like to say that the fact that that they are impacted communities might also speak to why there are fewer people that know about getting online for this meeting.
Yeah.
We actually, one of the nice features of Nextdoor is that it shows you how many people took a look at your post. And earlier today, we noticed that over 300 people had actually taken a look at it. So there was some awareness.
Good.
And I will just say too, as mentioned earlier, the topic of environmental justice has been a big focus of this update. And there are a lot of new policies and actions related to environmental justice that are going to be applied countywide. And those get at things like improving outreach and engagement with impacted community members and making sure there's a lot of outlets and methods to try to reach as many people as you can. But those are things that apply to all of the impacted communities, not specific to Vine Hill. So this profile is really focused on kind of the Vine Hill and Mountain View specific issues. So this next couple pages shows maps of some of those indicators or those factors that we saw on the last page, the things that the state's data showed as being higher in Vine Hill than throughout the rest of the state. So these are some of those big issues related to environmental justice that affect this area. So on this page, you can see a map first about cleanup sites. So what this map shows is the concentration of cleanup sites. Again, these are like hazardous materials cleanup sites. And so in the darker color in Vine Hill there, you can see that there's a higher concentration of cleanup sites than there are, throughout the rest of the state. And so that's why that area gets a darker color and gets a higher score than that last page. And then the dots that you see are actual individual cleanup sites based on the state's data. So this is one of those environmental justice issues for the community. Hazardous waste is the map to the right. So this shows the density of hazardous waste facilities and generators in the community. So you can see here, this is a very dark color. We're looking at like a 99% ranking. And what that means is that this dark color here has a density of hazardous waste facilities and generators that is higher than 99% of the state. So this is one of the big issues here for the community. So that's what this data is showing. And then we have one more of those types of maps here on this page showing the proximity to solid waste sites and facilities. So similar to those other issues, these are sites and facilities that can pose hazardous or health impacts to nearby community members. This part of Vine Hill is ranked at 92%. That means that the area is exposed to more solid waste hazards than 92% of the state. So that's what these pages of the profile are showing. And again, this is just based on state data. So this has nothing to do with community input that we talked about earlier. But welcome any comments or questions about this. Okay. So part of the reason we're showing this in the profile is to set up the policy guidance, which is not yet developed. Again, that's what we're planning to develop based on the comments that we've heard here and at the previous meeting. If any of you have thoughts about these issues and how you think the county should be responding to these issues, in particular in your community, we'd welcome that kind of input or any other thoughts you have about these issues. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so we can see each other. Any more thoughts on the profile or other things that we're asking about today? I think it's fine to wrap up early, and I do want to give you a little bit of information about what's to come. So we're not quite there, but before we get to that point, I just wanted to see if there's other discussion items from the group. Okay. All right, so last screen share then. Let me get back to the presentation. Okay, so the slide shows the next steps. So as I mentioned earlier, we're kind of wrapping up this public review phase for the countywide policies. So that's going to be that sustainability committee meeting that Will was describing on Monday. We're also planning to post a brief survey to get some kind of high level feedback on those policies on the project website. And we'll send an e-blast out to the email list when that's ready. So keep an eye out for that. That's again for the countywide policy issues. And I think if you registered for tonight's meeting, you're on our email list. So you will hear about that when that is published. For this meeting, as follow-up to this meeting, what we are going to be doing is taking your input, refining that context part of the profile that we reviewed, and also preparing the policy guidance part, the part that was missing. So we'll be preparing some of the guiding principles, policies, and actions, and putting that into a full draft profile. And that will be published with all the rest of the draft general plan, either later this year or very early in 2023. And at that point, it will be, everything, the full general plan will be out for review. And we would encourage you to both review the draft profile and look at the rest of the general plan, any sections that interest you, and provide comments. We'll do a whole nother round of outreach related to that draft general plan review. So keep an eye out for that. Again, all of the publication of the draft general plan and all of the outreach and engagement we do at that phase will be communicated via the e-blasts and published on our website. In the meantime, there will be some periodic check-ins with the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors, again, including the Board of Supervisors Sustainability Committee meeting on Monday. And our website has all of those meetings shown on the calendar, and we'll show other updates. So again, I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us. I know there was only a few people here, but it was really valuable to get your insights. And I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to share those thoughts. So Will, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, thanks. I would like to echo Tanya's sentiments. Thank you for joining us, and really stress that we'd love to have you sign up for our mailing list at the envisioncontracosta2040.org website.
Yeah, and I just realized I don't think we put your email in the chat, so let me do that real quick. So yeah, if you have comments, more comments on the profile or anything else we talked about today, Will is your primary point of contact for this project, so don't hesitate to email him those thoughts. And you will be working on the draft general plan throughout this year, and so anytime you want to share your thoughts, please do. But like Will said, the sooner the better. We're kind of at a transition point where we're going to be compiling everything that we've been working on for the last couple of years into the full product. And so knowing the extent of comments sooner is helpful. But again, it's encouraged whenever. So, okay, so Will's email is in there.
And it's on the website with my phone number as well.
Great. Okay.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. And that's it. I think we'll just say have a good evening.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
you.
Bye.
Okay, good night.